What's up, little enzymes? Welcome back to Daisha's Digest. The topic of today's video is blood is thicker than water. But fun fact, the actual full phrase of that idiom is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it actually has a totally opposite meaning than what most people intend it as. And so the original meaning is the meaning that we are diving into today in this story. Before we get started, everything that you see or hear in this video will be linked in the description. And if you enjoy vlogs, I do have a first vlog channel that I will also have linked in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into it. So we have two main stories with updates, but I did want to read this one story. I was looking for it ever since I saw it pop up like on my YouTube feed. It reminds me of a video we did recently where it was talking about how like the kids felt entitled to the parents' inheritance, etc., etc. Well, this is a real life story where something like that happened, and let me just read it. So the title of this story, and this just happened like last week, August 26, 2024, man kills entire family, then himself over belief he was taken out of late mother's will. That's incredibly tragic and sad, like just crazy. So the story is, this happened in, I believe, Long Island. A man's perception that he was omitted from his late mother's will appears to have triggered a devastating chain of events that left an entire family deceased, officials say. A press conference Monday afternoon by Nassau County Police revealed the chilling details behind the deaths of 5 family members in a quiet Long Island neighborhood. Joseph DeLucia Jr., 59, used a shotgun to blank his 2 siblings and his niece before taking his own life outside his mother's home in Syosset, just 3 days after she was laid to rest. The home on Wyoming Court became the scene of a grim discovery when officers arrived to find DeLucia Jr. with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Inside the house, which had been the longtime family home, the bodies of Joanne Kearns, 69, Frank DeLucia, 64, Tina Hammond, 64, and her daughter Victoria Hammond, 34, were located by law enforcement. Police reported that the tragedy unfolded 3 days after the funeral of the family's matriarch. It was during this time of mourning that DeLucia Jr. believed he would be disenfranchised. The perception of Joseph Jr. was that he was being cut out of the will and was going to be displaced without a place to go, an official said. The deaths have caused shockwaves through the community and spotlighted the impact of untreated mental health issues. During the conference, officers underscored the imperative to report signs of mental instability or threats, particularly when firearms are involved. DeLucia Jr. had lived at the address his entire life and had never lived on his own, leaving his state of mind in question as his world faced impending upheaval. Despite rumors of strife over the will, officials clarified that DeLucia Jr. was not cut from his mother's will, though he was required to relocate, police clarified. With no direct survivors of the DeLucia family, the NYPD has asked for privacy on behalf of extended family members who are left to mourn and reconcile with the consequences of this unfathomable act. The investigation into the incident and subsequent incident continues. So essentially, this man, his mother had passed away 3 days prior. I'm assuming the family was at the house discussing. I'm not exactly sure if there was a discussion being had at the time or not, but he was under the impression that he wasn't getting anything from his mother's will. And also, he was probably going to have to move out of the house that he lived in his whole life. So I guess that threw him into some psychosis. I'm not sure, but he ended up often the whole family. It's just a sad, unnecessary story. I'm sure they could have worked something out. I'm sure they weren't going to leave him on the street or anything like that. But his state of mind wasn't in the right place to where he could think clearly. And I don't know his mental health history or anything like that. But I just thought it was an interesting story because we had just covered similar Reddit stories, and some people are like, no, this has to be fake, like this can't be real. And it's almost as if literally this was like, I saw this story like a day or two after I had filmed and posted that Reddit story, and I too was like, nah, like there can't really be people out here like that, like really feeling entitled to their parents' inheritance or money. But there are, to the point where he was willing to risk it all, literally, for his family and himself. That's sad, man. I think this article made a good point. It is very important to treat mental health issues. I also think that it is very important to build something for yourself. You should never be 100% relying on anyone. It's okay to get help every now and then, but if you are dependent on another person and that person all of a sudden is not here for whatever reason, or they're unable to help, you're really gonna be stuck and feeling desperate. And when people are desperate, it ain't no telling what they could do. So rest in peace to that family. Thoughts and prayers are with the surviving family members, but I just thought that was a very sad yet interesting story. So I guess we can consider that the warm-up. We'll go to the two main stories. So this first one is, am I the a-hole for prioritizing my nephew and niece over my own children after they hid their mom's affair from her for years? I, 57 male, was married to my wife for almost 25 years, and we divorced 4 years ago after I found out about her infidelity. She had an affair partner for almost 5 years. She is now with her affair partner. The whole process hurt me a lot because everything I did in life, I did it for my wife and kids. And to now find that out about my wife, it just hurt me. My 2 children, 29 female and 26 male, had known about the affair for years, and they had hidden it from me. They both felt very guilty about it, and I don't blame them because they didn't want to break up their family. My daughter even cried a lot and apologized a lot of times, but I told her it was all right. They had their own life now, and I didn't want this eating them up, so I told them to let go of the guilt. However, ever since I found that they had hidden the affair from me, I lost a lot of love for them. I wasn't going to cut them out of my inheritance or will or anything like that, but emotionally, I couldn't connect with them at all. I also have a niece, 30 female, and nephew, 28 male, who I have been very close with, especially since their father passed away at a really young age. I played a father-like role during their young years because losing her husband at such a young age was very tough for my sister. Over the last 4 years, I have also been looking forward to spending more time with them. Both my niece and nephew have children, and they have invited me over for their children's birthdays. They have also invited me over for their own birthdays, on Father's Day, on holidays. Overall, we are a very tight-knit, multi-generational family, and I am very proud to be a grandpa to their children, and we are already developing a bond. However, in doing so, I have also lost all interest in connecting with my own children. My daughter has 2 children while my son has his first child on the way. They have invited me over multiple times, but I have told them I'm busy. I rarely go over, if at all, and I've missed almost all their children's special occasions. I'm not really interested in being a grandpa to their children. Monetarily, sure, I have been sending them gifts, but I just don't feel like seeing them at all. My daughter especially seems very hurt by it at times, but I hope she understands the reason for this. Am I the a-hole? I say not the a-hole for the feelings. I mean, he feels how he feels, and I understand why. He essentially feels betrayed by like two of the people. I mean, they're like an extension of him, really. They come from him. So the people he birthed and brought into this world essentially like aided in his wife cheating. Not, they had a small part to play. They just didn't say anything. But like, I understand why he feels that way. I would feel hurt too. Like, y'all say y'all love me and like I'm your father, whatever, but then you won't tell me. But then from the kids' point of view, I understand they didn't want to break up the family. They probably thought everything would get better. They didn't want an unstable home life, etc. They had their own reasonings, and I don't know. Well, actually, she had an affair for almost 5 years. She is now with almost 25. I'm trying to get a sense of how old they were. So they got divorced 4 years ago. That would have made the oldest 25, which if the affair was the 5 years leading up to the divorce, that would have made him around 19, 20. And the other kid about 16, 17 when they knew. Yeah, I don't know. They were older. If my calculations are correct, they were older when this affair happened. It's not like they were like 12, 13, in their kind of teen years, not really understanding how the world works. I don't know if I would be able to forgive them either. At least he's still generous enough to have them in the will and monetarily providing everything like that. If anything, I would say maybe they can get some counseling so they can try to work through this issue. It doesn't seem like they did. That could potentially help, but at the end of the day, I could see how this would be something that he just wouldn't be able to get over, and I would completely understand. Someone said, "You say it's all right, but is it really? Don't lie to yourself. Tell the truth. Tell them it was not okay." Another person said, "You're absolutely right. Also, I'm curious if his children maintain a relationship with their mother and her former affair partner or current partner, and if they would be present for the same events. If so, it would be major salt in the wound for OP to attend." Yeah, that would be messed up. Someone says, "Not the a-hole for prioritizing your niece and nephew, but you do need to be honest with your children and tell them that they lost your trust when they didn't tell you about their mother's affair. Telling them not to feel guilty about it was obviously a kindness from you to make them feel better, but you should have also told them that even though you don't want them to suffer from guilt, you also don't trust them." Someone else says, "It's more than that though. They caused irreparable damage to their relationship and he has forgiven, but he can't forget and pretend they're cool. If he tells them he has lost trust, they may try to work on it and increase their contact. If he explains that he understands why they did what they did and that he forgives them, but he is not able to forget, maybe they will see this is a direct consequence of their actions. The shame is it isn't OP's grandkids' fault, and now his ex-wife has taken away his marriage, kids, and grandkids from him, which is so sad." And then another person, "This is how damaging affairs can be. You're not just messing up your life or your relationship with your spouse, you hurt everyone in the nuclear family and splash damage beyond. OP, this was all your wife's doing. She's the one who cheated. She's the one who put your children in a position to hide what they discovered in the first place. She's the one who continued with her affair partner instead of stopping right then and there. They knew it was wrong of their mother, but talk about being between a rock and a hard spot. Do we tell dad and break his heart? Break up his marriage to our mother, who will be devastated too? Uproot our whole lives because we told? Are we now to blame because we didn't want to ruin a whole marriage and family dynamic? Or do we hope to God this all goes away and this family can get back to normal? Your children are your responsibility to protect, not the other way around. Your wife forced that upon them. Doing so ruined your relationship with her and with them. You would do yourself a great service to go to counseling. It's just too much to bear alone. Good luck, OP. I truly hope you think about and repair your relationship. They're just as much a victim as you are. Yeah, I'm kind of more agreeing with this comment. I think maybe go to counseling, or at least try to go to counseling. But again, like I said, if he ends up that this is something that he can't get over, I would also completely understand that. But I would at least try to maybe get some counseling to see if there's something we could work out. So he had an update one day later. Thank you all for the advice. The one thing I got most from the comments was that my children deserved to know the truth and to not be left in a limbo like it was for years. And that's what I just did. I just got off a video call with my daughter and my son. The call was pretty rough and extremely emotional, but I got everything off my chest. I told them that while I had forgiven them, I could never forget it, and that for my mental health, it was better we limit our interactions. I told them to not feel guilty about anything, but that also after dedicating more than half my life to my wife and children, it was time I put myself first. I told them my heart wasn't in it to be a grandparent to their children. I was also honest with them and told them my heart was only in it for my nephews and nieces' kids, and whenever I did go to their house, I felt joy, while for my own children, I felt nothing. My children probably already knew it, but I wanted them to hear it from me directly. It was really hard to get it off my chest and say it directly to my children's faces. I told them they are still welcome to come to my house anytime and call me anytime they needed help. Both my children took the call really hard, but I think my daughter took it worse. Those were really ugly tears, and I felt really bad about it. But I do feel a sense of relief, and I have pretty much told all of my feelings to my children and did not keep anything secret. I can now move forward with my life, and so can my children. Dang. That mom just ruined everything. As another person said, she ruined her marriage, she ruined OP's relationship with his kids, and she ruined his relationship with his grandkids. Just terrible. So some comments from that post. Someone said, but wait, did they just accept it or beg for a chance? Also, did your kids' relationship with their mother suffer? OP said they didn't beg, but they did apologize a lot and also cried. And they asked me to reconsider. I told them I would, but for now, I would rather we limit the interactions. Yes, their relationship with their mother has also suffered a lot. Someone else says, I see, man. Let me tell you, screw what Reddit says, whether you are right or wrong. Do what is best for you. For once, think only of yourself. And another person, his wife betrayed him, but his kids were his own blood. I probably understand why this hurts twice as much for OP. Right, I mean, I get it. If I was him, I don't know if I would be able to forgive this either, to be honest. And then someone else, sad situation all around. And the last comment, horrible reality. There is no legitimate way to judge this one. I just know from personal experience, OP and his children will all come to hate and regret this entire mess someday, when it's too late and he has passed away, most likely. I don't know. That's your personal experience. That might not be their experience. Everyone is different. Some people don't have any regrets. Some people do. But that's tough. That's sad. Comment below what y'all would do in that situation if that happened to you. I'm just trying to think, because I don't want any kids. I'm just trying to put myself in the position. Like, if I had kids and my husband was cheating on me and they knew about it, so you mean to tell me, and I'm not sure if they knew for the entire 5 years, but you mean to tell me we're at home having daily interactions. You know your mom is cheating, or your husband, you know your daddy cheating, and you in my face just... I don't know, man. Yeah, that would be hard to come to terms with. So let's go to the next story. Am I the a-hole for cutting my biological children out of my will and instead giving it to my stepson? I, 60 male, know that title probably caught a lot of you, but it really isn't what it seems. This entire situation has been agonizing for me, both physically and mentally. I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll try and be as succinct as possible so as to not bore anyone with the details. So, I've been married for 2 years to my wife, Jen, 58 female, with whom I am raising her son, 16 male. Man, words can't describe how much I love that kid. I treat him fully as my own. He's such a nice boy, and I'm proud to say he gets on with me very well. I also have 2 children from a previous marriage, 30 male and 27 female, from my now ex-wife, 60 female. Long story short, I've cut my bio son, 30 male, and daughter, 27 female, out of my will. They are to inherit nothing. I run a rather successful business and own a few houses, which are worth a lot. I had always intended to pass that on to them. The business to my son, and the houses split between my son and daughter. I know it's a bit morbid because there's nothing really wrong with me health-wise, but I've always been open with that to them. To be honest, they both had a spoiled upbringing, so they had a head start in life, which is the complete opposite of how I grew up. Now, if we wind the clocks back some 5 or so years, I was married to my now ex-wife. We had been married for 35 years. We did have our ups and downs like any other marriage, but there was never any infidelity or anything. Well, long story short, I ended up coming home to find her in bed with another man. Of all the ways to find out your spouse is cheating on you, that was the one I did not expect. Not because of how disrespectful it was, because at that point, respect is out the window, but because of how stupid it was. I did a lot of late work at my office during that time, but surely they weren't that stupid. At that moment, I was seething in rage and had to restrain myself from beating the crap out of that guy. I ended up divorcing her and keeping my distance from her. I needed a lot of therapy and support to get through that. My relationship with my bio kids was still great, and they understood what I was going through, or so I thought. It was only recently that when I went for a drink with my daughter, that she was all of a sudden quiet and not like her usual self. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she was scared to tell me. I calmly reassured her that everything would be okay. She then proceeded to spill her guts and say that she and her brother knew about their mother's affair, but that their mother had begged them not to tell me that they knew. My son ended up agreeing with his mother and convinced my daughter that this would be best. So they knew their mother was having an affair, but were afraid to tell me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her, wasn't she and her brother angry at what their mother had done? And she said she was, but that they couldn't cope with this and that it wasn't their place to get involved. Well, by not telling me, they had involved themselves. I later had to confront my son over this. He hit me with a, "It was to protect you" shtick. At that point, I felt very empty and cold inside. He began apologizing too, but by that point, I think I had enough. Yeah, this is another, I'm gonna keep reading the rest of this, but this is just like the last situation. I mean, the fact that I wouldn't be able to get over this. You in my face, like you know for a fact that she's doing this and you don't tell me. So you're essentially picking your mom's side over me. And she's the one in the wrong. But you're saying it's to protect me? Like, why would you want me to be in a relationship like that? I could be free to go be with somebody else. That's even if I didn't say anything directly, I feel like if I was the kid, I would find some way for him to find out. Without me directly saying it, I would try to find some way for the information to get to him. That way I could be like, oh, I didn't say anything. I don't know how he knew. But just to completely keep the secret with no intention of letting him know at all, That just seems crazy to. I feel like I would even tell a stranger if I saw somebody cheating on them or something. Like, and this is your own father. Maybe the mom manipulated them or fed them some lies. I don't know, but I don't understand it. So he continues, I had come to terms with the fact that my bio kids are fully grown adults now, and that this is how they've chosen to be. And then also, let's see, he said this happened sometime 5 years ago. The kids are 30 and 27, so 5 years ago would make them 25 and 22. So they were older. They weren't, again, like teenage years or anything like that, to where the breakup would directly affect them, like being in the home type of way. So yeah, I really don't understand why they didn't say anything. A 25-year-old and a 22-year-old, let's say it even was a couple years before that. So what, a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old? At that point, you're probably already out the house. Like, why not just say something? So he said, I'm not going to fully go no contact with my own kids. I can't bring myself to do that, but I don't want much of a relationship with them either. I had to sit down with them both and informed them that I'd cut them out of my will and that stepson would be inheriting much of what they were going to get. This led them to have outbursts of which I myself didn't even experience when I caught their mother cheating. They accused me of being heartless and cruel, and how can I love my stepson more than them when he's not even really my kid? I told them both, he's more of my own than either of you, and left. My stepson is very bright, and I am sure he could one day take over my business. He could pick any of the houses I own to raise his family with too, and do what he wants with the rest of the properties. My ex has been sending me messages, calling me heartless too. Ha! She's one to talk. I have to admit, I have thought whether I went too far on this. Am I the a-hole? I mean, I say no, not the a-hole. Honestly, it's your inheritance. It's your property and assets and stuff. No one says that you are required to give it to your kids. I would say, because I think sometimes like wills and stuff can be contested. So people always say like give everybody something, so they can't say that they just got nothing and they can't like contest it. Or if like that is the route you're gonna go, just make sure it's ironclad with the lawyers and the paperwork and stuff. But hey, it's your money. You could do whatever you want with it. If you don't want to give it to them, that's what you decided to do. It's the consequences of their actions. Someone said, you're the a-hole. Your children were put in an impossible situation. Tell you and break up their family, or not tell you and get to keep their family. You literally proved to them that they were correct, that they would lose a parent if you found out. You legally can do what you want, but you proved that you don't give a dang about your children and they were expendable to you. And OP responded, my children were fully grown adults at the time. They weren't kids. Right. I disagree with this commenter because the fact of the matter is he's not proving that they were correct, that they would lose a parent if they found out. He found out and they still had him. So that part is not true. The part that made them lose him is the fact that they kept it a secret. So their comment doesn't even make sense. Someone else said, yeah, let's be serious. The stepkid likes him, but could probably care less about him. He'll probably go to college and forget all about him. OP said, hey now, you are way out of line. Yikes. There are a lot of comments, so I have to take time to read them all. But I have to respond to this one. That kid is like flesh and blood to me. I have more love for him than either of my bio kids right now, and I say that with sincerity. He calls me dad. He takes a real interest in my life and my business too. In fact, more than my bio kids did. I also see a lot of myself in him. My bio kids, on the other hand, spoiled too much, although a lot of that is their mother's fault, but partially mine too. Yeah, I only had one thing, because he's only been married to his wife for 2 years, which I guess that kind of could be considered a long time. I just don't want him to get too like tied up in trying to like fix his mistakes and redo the things that he did wrong, and like this is his second chance. I just don't want him to get to, I don't know what the word is, but like rose-colored glasses, you know. I mean, it could be legit that him and the stepson have a really good relationship, but I just don't want him to be fooling himself. Hopefully he's not. And hopefully you guys don't hear this train outside. I keep having to stop the recording because of this freaking train. But I'm just going to keep going because I'm tired of pausing. Hopefully it's not too loud, or if it is, you don't hear it. So the verdict is mixed between you're the a-hole and not the a-hole. So then he does have an update. Update, am I the a-hole for cutting my biological children out of my will and instead giving it to my stepson? So I imagine many of you have been waiting for an update to my situation. There were so many comments to my original post that I basically gave up on reading them all, given that they unanimously agreed that I was in fact the a-hole. Oh wow, that's surprising. It's different from the other posts, even though it's the same situation, almost exact. Now I imagine many will be pleased that I did take the advice on board, but before we get into that, there are a few things that I need to address. I saw a lot of comments referring to me as some sort of heartless monster, which couldn't be further from the truth. I also saw a lot of comments claiming that my ex-wife married me because I was rich and that I deserved to get cheated on to escape my harm. Reading this really made me both confused and upset as to how people had just invented the idea that my ex-wife was in some sort of loveless, harmful marriage and that she cheated on me to escape me. Honestly, it seemed to me that people were attempting to justify and defend her cheating. The characterization of her couldn't be further from the truth. The reason why I kept referring to my kids as spoiled is because they had a very different upbringing to myself. I'm from a working class background. My parents worked blue-collar jobs. It took me decades to acquire the wealth that I have. My ex-wife, on the other hand, was from a privileged background. Over the years, she's mismanaged her finances with reckless spending habits, whereas I've been very tight with my finances. It is really odd to me how people desperately wanted to frame her in some kind of way. Anyway, I cleared my mind and braced myself to meet my bio kids. Reading the comments made me realize that I had misplaced anger. My daughter had wanted to tell me from the get-go, but was manipulated into not doing so. Her gut reaction was to help me. I was full of so much anger that it was really just to hide the pain I was feeling. But it wasn't her fault. Honestly, I felt shame for how I hadn't considered how she felt. My son, on the other hand, he's always been a bit meek, but also closer to his mother. Really, what she did to him was more awful, if anything. When I met with my kids, they were very nervous and apologetic as to some of the things they had said in their outburst. I also apologized for my behavior. Honestly, at this moment, we all began crying. Reddit, I'm not the kind of guy who cries, but I just could not help it. We hugged and embraced. Afterward, I felt drained, but in a very calm sort of way, as if a weight was being lifted. I told them that my plan is to now split my properties equally. So, my stepson and my 2 bio kids will each have a property of their own. I will also leave a large sum to be split between my wife, stepson, and bio kids. They seemed very happy with this, but also very grateful. I know these days it's very hard to get a house. I feel for a lot of you kids wanting your own place. However, I did have to reaffirm that my business will go to my stepson. Now this caused a bit of disagreement with my bio son, but I had to be no nonsense and explain it to my bio son. My bio son has always wanted to take over my business. Instead of working for me, he's been working in an adjacent industry. I feel if he had really wanted it, he would have worked for me instead. I love my son, I really do, but he's just not cut out for it. He's soft and not cutthroat. I don't think he'd really have the guts and grit to run my business. My stepson, on the other hand, not only is he taking a real interest, but he's just got the personality for it. For example, my stepson is very loud and confident. He's always talking to people. He has a bit of an ego and arrogance problem for sure, but he is so assured of himself. Whereas my bio son, he's quiet and a bit socially anxious. I can't see him walking into a room of people and negotiating. I had to tell my bio son in simple terms, you're just not cut out for it. He didn't argue against it. I think he just accepted it. He basically proved his point. I got a lot of crap for saying that I have a lot of love for my stepson. Now that a lot of my anger has lifted, it's still there, but I'm trying to be mindful of it. I would say I don't love my stepson more than my bio kids. I would say that I love him equally as much. I will get crap for this, but what's so wrong with this? Love isn't about biological relation. I love my now wife, and I haven't known her much longer than I know my stepson. I met him quite early into when I first began dating my now wife. My stepson calls me dad, so I think he really loves me like he would love a biological father who raised him. His bio dad was never in the picture. The other thing is, he is just so similar to how I was at his age, a lot more than my bio son, if I may add. To all of the folks who said my stepson is using me, that's just not him. I know the kid. I see myself in him. He's a good kid and he respects me. Now, the other major happening here is that a lot of the blame lies with my ex-wife. What she did to my kids was truly awful. I feel I misplaced a lot of anger because it would be easier to blame my kids than to revisit my anger towards my ex-wife. I wanted to tell myself that I had moved on from my anger towards her, but sometimes the best lies are the ones we tell ourselves. The truth is, I hadn't, and now I had to confront this anger again. My daughter told me that for a long time she had considered going no contact with her mother, but that she had been too scared to do it. You see, she does rely on her mother a bit for financial support, so she felt trapped. I told my daughter there and then that I think no contact would help her, and if she wants to do this, I will unequivocally support her financially. I will pay for whatever therapy or other expenses she needs. What? These kids are truly spoiled. 27 and you financially dependent? I don't know. Let me not judge because different people have different lives. I just couldn't imagine being that old and being financially dependent on anyone other than myself. But hey, my daughter agreed to this. I expect my ex is going to try and contact me about this, but she brought this upon herself. My bio son, on the other hand, he is going to remain in contact with her, although he's expressed that he wants to limit contact with her, which is fine with me. I'm just glad that my daughter is going to be free of her mother. My bio kids have only met my wife a handful of times. I told them to spend more time at our place and more time with my stepson. I hope they can treat my stepson as they would a bio brother. They said they would be happy to spend time with him. So, folks, that is all I have to update. For the most part, things worked out quite well. I did take everyone's advice on board, but I would caution people to relax when they get comfortable calling people monsters and evil. People just assumed I was some evil narcissist who harms everyone. Nobody really took time to consider I was just hurting. But regardless of all that noise, I admit I did a lot wrong. Okay, well, hey, it worked out for him. As I said, I don't know what I would do in this situation. I'm glad it worked out for him and his family. As we saw in the first story, it turned out totally different than this. So that's the last main read of the video, and then we will go into the palate cleanser. Also, I want to say, I feel like having a lot of wealth like that and having kids who know that they're gonna like get something from you, I don't know, that would just make me paranoid all the time. Like, are you being nice to me because you know you're gonna get something and you're scared to be taken out of the will, or do you truly like, you know, that would always make me paranoid, and really there's never a way to know. Anyways, so the palate cleanser is from the r/petty revenge subreddit, and the title is "Try to Force Me to Take in My Deadbeat Brother. Enjoy wasting your 3-day weekend." My older brother Ted, 42 male, has been living with my parents for the last 6 years or so. He refuses to get a full-time job, refuses to help around the house, drunk half the time, known to sell a little grass and Zans out of his bedroom window, super disrespectful to my mom and blames her for everything. He has at least 2 kids by 2 different women he hasn't seen in years. Last year, I bought my first house, and since day 1, my parents and brother have been harassing me to let him move in with me. They say I have so much space and that they've already done enough for Ted, and it was my turn now. It's not his turn, it's Ted's turn. It's Ted's turn to do for himself and stop being a bum. You are 42, sir. 42. Been living with your parents since you were 36. You have absolutely no excuse. You refuse to get a full-time job. No, you are not moving in with me. No, absolutely not. So they say basically a constant nagging since 2023. This weekend, I finally got sick of it and decided to send a message. I got a call last Tuesday with my parents demanding once again that I take in my brother and that my dad had a 3-day weekend coming up, so he had time to help him move. I said, okay, fine, I'll do it, and gave them a list on conditions that Ted would have to follow to live here. Of course, they promised he'd do everything I said, BS, and we scheduled it for Friday. So Friday comes and they show up with 2 cars full of stuff, but guess what? I wasn't home. I take their call while I'm having a beer a few blocks away. I tell them I got cold feet. Oh my, I'm so sorry. But I changed my mind and decided I couldn't go through with it. They huff and puff, but after a couple of hours of ignored calls, they go home. I call them Saturday to apologize for being such a coward, and after dwelling on it, I've decided they were right and I will let him move in. And as a token of my remorse, I even bought a mattress and a nice heavy bed frame as a moving in gift. I just took a picture of a random expensive mattress and bed frame at the local furniture store. My parents were instantly smitten with the photos. Oh, you guys like cherry wood? And I suggested that maybe Ted didn't deserve such a nice gift, and it would be better if Ted took their older, worn-out bed frame and mattress, and I send them home with the new stuff. Of course they took that offer. So on Sunday, they show up again, but with not only all Ted's stuff, but also a large wooden bed frame with built-in drawers and a high backboard. And guess what? When they showed up, I'm not home again. I ignore their calls for a good hour and finally tell them that I decided to change my mind again and hung up. They went ballistic, but ultimately left again. We talked yesterday morning and I told my dad that I was sorry and I was wrong and he can move in. My dad freaked out and told me how in the heck can he ever believe that lie again, and I basically told him he can't, so they should stop bringing it up. That's great. Edit, not going to bother replying to all the people saying things like, why didn't you just say no? Or, this could be solved with a mature conversation. What part of harassing me over a year did y'all not understand? How many times do I have to say no? 30 times? 40? 50 times? No doesn't work, and trying the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is just insanity. Wow, I think that's expert level revenge. If they wouldn't accept the no, he basically had to show them, like, no means no. I've said no plenty of times. Hey, seemed to have worked. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.